Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Tina, and I am one of God's oracles. Sound crazy? Welcome to my world. I have my handsome husband Terry here with me. Hello, my love.
Good afternoon.
In this podcast, we are going to be talking about God's truth in reference to coincidences, or as Terry and I like to say, no coincidences.
There are no such thing as coinky dinks.
Before we get started, I wanted to update you on a change for the event I'm doing end of March in St. George, Utah. The event is actually now going to be split into two separate events. Dr. Troy Graff at the Natural Healing Center in St. George, Utah has asked me to actually speak on two separate topics. The first event, Change Your Mind and Change Your Life, will be Sunday, March 29th. And the second event will be Change Your Mind and Heal Your Body, Tuesday, March 31st. I have set aside time for private sessions on Monday, March 30th, also on Tuesday, March 31st, before the event at 3 o'clock in St. George for anyone who would like to do so. If you would like to get tickets for either event or to book a private session while I'm in the area, please call Tamron at the Natural Healing Center in St. George, Utah at 435-674-5454, and that was 435-674-5454. Also, Dr. Graff has graciously offered to anybody who purchases a ticket for either event, he has offered a free mini body evaluation with him to be redeemed anytime after the event. I spoke to Tamron today, and seats will be filling up fast, so don't wait to get your ticket or to schedule your private session. Terry and I were so honored to receive Dr. Graff's invitation and just amazed at his dedication to bringing knowledge and healing to all of his patients.
I just have to say thank you to Dr. Graff and his staff for sharing his extensive knowledge of the mind and the body, and most importantly, how they work together. Tamron also has such an amazing ability to help people find their worth and to use that knowledge to find their path here on earth. So thank you to both of you so much for sharing your gifts with us mere mortals. And if you get a chance, check out their website at www.mynaturalhealingcenter.com. You will not be disappointed.
Also, one more note before we get started. Please, 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 if you enjoy this podcast, go to iTunes or whatever podcast provider you use and leave a review. Ratings really help us to stay on the charts so that people can find us and so that we can bring truth to everyone. I need to start today with a little disclaimer.
You mean I can't use bad words? Can I maybe just use poopy head? Look a brother up.
If you are looking for a strict and preachy sermon, this is not it. This podcast is about God's truth and not what society has taught us. I want you to know that because Terry and I are not crazy, we are aware that society may tell you that the things we say are crazy. We know that the things that we discuss here are not common knowledge, but they are truth, God's truth. And you have the free will to accept the things we tell you or not, with no judgment. Today, we are going to be talking about coincidences. We want to start with an event that happened just the other day. We were driving home from a trip that we had taken, and we had been in the car for probably close to almost 3 hours. And we knew that we had to stop at the store before we got home, and we'd planned to do that at a Walmart that was close to our house. We were still probably about 30 minutes away from our house, and Terry says, I need to go to the bathroom. It just came on all of a sudden. I gotta go. I said, okay, you know what? There's a Walmart 2 exits down. Why don't we just get what we need there and you can go to the bathroom? And so we get to the Walmart and Terry went in to go to the bathroom. Normally I would stand by the car, but for whatever reason, I just felt prompted to go and sit on the bench at the front of the store. And when I approached the bench, there was a gentleman who had just sat down and he looked up at me and I said, do you mind if I sit with you? He said, not at all. And I sat down and he said, could I have one of your cigarettes? And I said, absolutely, here you go. And then he asked me, he said, how's your day? And I said, good, thank you. We just driving in, been in the car for a while. And I said, how's your day? And he said, not very good. I turned to him and I said, well, what's going on? He paused for probably about 10-15 seconds and he said, I can't believe I'm going to tell you this, but I came here today because I lost my job 2 weeks ago and my fiance is pregnant with our son and we don't have any food. I came here to steal food because we're hungry. He said, I went inside. I couldn't do it. Came outside and I sat down and I looked up and you were standing there. I just smiled at him because I thought to myself, okay, Father, another coincidence. About that time, Terry came walking out of the store. He had finished with the bathroom. I am going to let Terry tell the next part of the story.
So I came out of the bathroom from our local Walmart there, walked up and saw my wife sitting there with this gentleman on the bench, Ray. We get introduced. I shake his hand, say, "Hey, Ray, how you doing?" And Tina gives me a quick breakdown on what's going on. And they're talking a little bit more, and I usually just kind of keep an eye on everything that's going on around us. And all of a sudden, I see a car pull up in front of us, literally almost 20 feet away. And
If that.
if that. And a police car rolls up, lights on, and I'm like, wow, were they speeding in the parking lot? What the heck just happened? And all of a sudden, the cop gets out of the car. He yells, "Get the f- out of the car." And I was like, what? And all of a sudden, dude draws his weapon, and he's pointing his gun at the car. And I'm like, oh, wow, stuff is about to go way south here.
And then this is right in front of
Everywhere.
us.
This is like 15 feet in front of
If
us. And
that.
two
And,
more cop cars roll up.
and
Cops
there's
are
police
piling
with,
out of the car.
and they guns drawn.
Yeah, weapons
and
drawn,
like
and I'm like,
screaming,
wow.
"Get out of the car! Get out of the car! Get out of the car!" And all of us are. I grab Ray, and
Ray, takes off.
I grabbed Ray, and I was like, "Let's go, bud!" And I took him inside, where Terry actually stayed outside because
Well,
adrenaline junkie.
I was thinking this was better than a deployment, and I'm like 20 feet away from this, so I'm checking everything out, going, "Wow, this is cool."
what had actually happened were two kids had stolen a car, and the police had caught them right there
Literally
in the
caught 'em.
Walmart parking lot, and that's what was happening. So I grabbed Ray and I was like, "Come on, there's another bench inside. Let's go talk in there." So we go inside and we sit down. He's a little shaken because this man had literally just come outside from not stealing. And when he came outside and sat down from not stealing, he looks up and sees me. And the next thing you know, he sees these kids being ripped out of these cars because they wouldn't get out. He saw that those people were going to be spending the night in jail, but he wasn't.
Yeah, that's it's a pretty profound reminder, especially since I knew at least one of them was 16 years old because that's what she was yelling at the police the entire time. All I could think of was like, yeah, Grand Theft Auto knows no age limit, so sorry.
We were sitting, we went inside, we sat down, and I told Ray, I said, "I know you don't know who I am, and we've never met before, but I have something I need to tell you." I said to Ray, I said, "Father has a message for you." So Father gave me this just beautiful message, and it was so powerful that I had to keep stopping because I was crying so hard. I mean, the tears were just flowing down my face, flowing down his face, and Father told him, he said, "Let go of the past, my son. I do not hold you to that. That is not who you are anymore. You choose not to be that man. Then don't. I've forgiven you. Let go. Become the man you choose to be." Ray's tearing up, and this is a guy that he looks like he has led a rough life. He's, he's tatted up.
Well, and even shared with us that he'd been working from a young age. And so when someone says to me working from a young age, whether they dropped out of school or did some other stuff, and they were working a job because they were trying to take care of their family because one income wasn't doing it. And so he even told me as we were going through the store about how they lived on potatoes and corn and rice and things like that. And these were just basic staple items, go to work that young and try and support your family.
I give this message to him. I could see that he was just so touched and so grateful. And as soon as the message was done, I hear Father say, "Now go buy him groceries." And I kind of like laughed to myself, and I was like, "With what money? what would you like me to use to buy him groceries?" And he said, "Go buy him groceries, my child." And I said, "Okay, well, what do I get?" And he said, "He knows what he needs. Go buy him groceries." So I look at Terry and I said, "Okay, so Ray, we're gonna go buy you groceries now. Let's get you some food for you and your family." And Terry just kind of looks at me and smiles like, "All right, let's do it." And I know what he was thinking. He had to have been thinking, "Wait, what money are we gonna use?"
Yeah, I'm thinking to myself, what has my wife gotten us into this time? And
He thinks that a lot, actually.
I do. And, at the same time, I was standing there and looked at Ray, and he had this just look on his face of like, he didn't know whether to be happy or embarrassed or ashamed or what it was. And he obviously was a bit nervous because here's these two people who just popped up out of nowhere and, hey, let's go grocery shopping. He's
And
like,
then the police
what?
came and
Right, and then police show up. So, there's a lot of stuff rolling around. I said, look, we have had people come out of the woodwork and help us during some of our hardest times. When our second daughter passed away, we have had people come out of the woodwork and help us. Some of these people we never met. Ever since then, we have been trying to pay that forward every time we get a chance. And I shared that with him, and I put my hands on his shoulder and I said, come on, man. I said, let's go get some groceries. I just saw the look of fear and other things and his nervousness and everything else just kind of go away.
So we did that. We went and we got him groceries. Then we drove him to his house, helped him unload the groceries. And he asked me if he could have a copy of my book, and he saw them in the trunk. And I said, of course. Then, Terry just told him, if there's anything else you need, just let us know. We'll do what we can. We don't have a lot, but we'll help you with whatever we can. I'm going to tell you why this is so absolutely not a coincidence. Well, you can already see why it's not a coincidence, but there's another level, another layer of showing how God is excellent at taking one event and changing thousands of lives at one time. 5 minutes before, maybe 10 minutes before Terry had to go to the bathroom, I was just having kind of a rough time, and I just said, tell me something good about myself to get me out of this space. When we dropped Ray off and we were pulling out of his driveway, Terry reached over and put his hand on my leg and he said, do you still need me to tell you something good about yourself? And I said, no. And I said, I am so humbly grateful because tonight someone eats, not because of me, but because of God. Because Father worked anonymously through us. And so many times he doesn't get the credit for that. I refer to it as God working anonymously because that's what he's doing. He had used Terry and I to help this guy know that he is loved and that everything he needs will be provided. And he made a good choice not to steal. And he showed him, look what happens when you steal.
Yeah, that's a pretty big lesson to see right there. Because honestly, had he gone in and gone through with it and tried to steal food, they probably would have caught him, and then he would have been the one with the cops showing up putting the handcuffs on him instead of watching two other people that had done something they shouldn't have. And so it's so crazy to see how that transpires. And if we go back, and it's kind of started with that question. Tell me something good about me. Tell me something that makes me a good person. So all those things that point at that being a coincidence, I'm sorry, but I don't buy that. I would buy that Father orchestrated all those things to happen just like they happened so that we would be in the situation that we were in.
So, Ray, if you are listening, we love you. Thank you for letting us use your story. Our next coincidence is actually a series of coincidences that spanned over a 10-year period. But it was always on the same day every year. That date is December 16th. The first time it happened was 1 year from the day that our daughter Faith passed away. Our daughter Faith was born at 24 weeks. She lived for about 30 minutes and then she passed away. We named her Faith because our faith in God is what got us through. On the 1 year anniversary, I had a really hard time with the whole thing. I grieved for such a long time. But on the day of her birthday, we lived in San Antonio, Texas at the time. She is buried in Corpus Christi, Texas. So which is about a 2.5-hour drive, and I was going to drive from San Antonio to Corpus Christi because I wanted to go and put flowers on her grave. I had driven that space 1,000 times at that point. For some reason, I could not find the entrance to the freeway. I do this all the time, and there was construction or something, so I couldn't take the exit that I normally did. And I tried to go a back way to go around, and it literally took me an hour and a half to get onto the freeway to drive to Corpus. And when I got to Corpus Christi, I think I got a call or something. I can't remember what it was. Something else delayed me. Altogether, I had been delayed about 3 hours. There was traffic, all of these things. When I went to the graveside, it had been a year since I had been there. I could not find my daughter's grave. And I burst into tears. Right at that moment, a woman had just pulled up and she came over to me and she said, "Oh my gosh, are you okay? What's going on?" I said, "I can't find my daughter's grave. It looks different." The sad thing is, the reason it looked different was there had been so many babies buried over the last year that her graveside wasn't at the edge anymore where it had been before. And she was like, it's okay, let me help you find it." And so we did. In talking to this woman, she was telling me that her son, 20 years previous, her son had died. And he was the very first baby ever buried in this baby cemetery in Corpus Christi. I thought, how crazy is that? That her baby had died exactly 20 years before Faith had died. As we're sitting there and we're talking and everything, I just got this overwhelming feeling that I needed to share something with her. Now, this has been 20 years ago, so this was well before God came and sat on our bed. But I said to her, "Your son doesn't want you to grieve anymore. He said that you need to stop blaming his father for his death because it wasn't anyone's fault. But you've been taking it out on him for 20 years. Give my brother a home." I kind of stopped for a moment. I was like, "Ooh, what did I just say to this complete stranger?" And this woman looks at me and she reaches over and she pokes me. I was like, "Okay, why is she poking me?" And she goes, "I needed to see if you were real. I thought maybe you were an angel bringing me a message," which is hysterical. But it actually happens all the time.
Are you Jesus? That one's better.
Oh, yeah. But that actually happens a lot. People will ask me if I'm an angel, and my husband always says, "You might want to go a little farther south." And I said, "No, no, ma'am. I'm human, just like you. I'm flesh and blood human, just like you." She said, "There's no way for you to have known. I was going to go home and tell my husband I wanted a divorce." And she said, "When I heard that message from you, I realized that I have been blaming my husband for 20 years because he wasn't there when my son died. But it wasn't his fault. He was working. He was providing for us. My son had been sick, and my husband was trying to make money to pay his bills and to get him a good doctor. I've always held it against him that he wasn't there. And we have another son who is 10 now. I was going to break up our home. Thank you. Thank you for helping me to see truth." And I sat down next to my daughter's grave and I just said, "Happy birthday, my little girl. I know you brought me here for this. Had I have been 30 minutes earlier, 30 minutes later, I would have never met her." So every year from 2000 to 2008, on December 16th, something happened that was extraordinary. Some coincidence put me in a place to stop a murder, stop a suicide,
Save someone's life.
just continual every year. It was something different, but it was always helping someone. After I guess it was probably after the third year, maybe the second. Well, I think after the second year, I thought, wow, what a coincidence. But after the third year, I would get so excited about her birthday because I felt like I was literally doing something with her, that her and I were changing the world together for one day a year. And when her 10th birthday came around, I was so excited. But that year, she didn't send me. She sent her father.
She did. She sent me, and there was a trial that was going on. One of the guys that was in my unit. Bad things had happened between him and his wife. He had been accused of assaulting her I spoke with the prosecutor, and they were going to trial with it, and they asked me to come down and testify and tell them about what I knew of this person and knew of his character and so on and so forth. So after the phone call that next morning, I drove to San Antonio, which was the day of Faith's birthday. Got down there and talked to the prosecutor a little bit. He talked to me about what they were doing right before I was supposed to go in to testify. Got in there and he asked me quite a few questions about what was going on, what I knew about this person, what I knew about their personality, what my impressions of the person were, things like that. And then he showed me a picture of the actual police photo from when the wife had filed assault charges on him. And he asked me what my opinion was. And so the prosecution, or the defense had said that she was highly intoxicated that day and had fallen out of a vehicle and smacked herself on the head. And that's why she had this big giant bruise on the side of her face and on her head. And I said that's not true. Usually if somebody's drunk, they fall this way or they fall that way. And I said, besides, if someone were to hit the side of their head like that, their shoulder would hit first and something else would hit first, and there would be other marks on them that weren't there. And so I told him that, in my opinion, there was a point of impact where someone had actually struck them with a hand or a fist or maybe another object, something, but there was something that specifically hit them in that spot. And it definitely wasn't somebody being passed out and falling over, because most people who get that drunk will fall flat on their face and bust their chin open or bust their nose open or something else. So of course the defense guy gets up after the prosecutor. He says, "Do you have a lot of experience with spousal abuse?" And I said, "Actually, I do." And if you could have seen the look on his face, it was like a rabid dog was about to pounce on his next victim. And his next question was, "Tell us how where did you come up with this experience?" And I'm pretty sure he was thinking that, I was going to have to admit to my own shortcomings or something else, that I was, either abused or an abuser. And I told him, I said, "No, my wife and I have a small nonprofit that we named after our daughter, and we help military families all the time." I said, "So this would not be the first spouse that I had seen that was abused by their husband." And he went to cut me off and didn't want me to say anything else. It was kind of funny, because then, of course, the prosecution stands up and says, "No, you open the door on this one, let him answer." And I answered it. And the look on the defense guy's face was like he had just been crushed and defeated and beaten, because he was not expecting that answer to come out of my mouth at all.
Someone had just told him the Easter Bunny was not real.
Yep, he got the Easter Bunny and Santa Claus, so that was pretty rough for him.
Well, that's ridiculous. Santa Claus is real.
Well, yeah. I saw him the other day, but it's good.
Did he have a Hawaiian shirt on?
He did.
Santa always wears a Hawaiian shirt when it's the off season.
So they dismissed me, and I was walking out of the courtroom, and I literally could feel that little girl's presence. I could feel her there when I was leaving. And she just basically said, "Good job, Dad." And I walked out, and I got out of there, and I went and I changed, and I got out of my uniform, and I was jumping in my car to head back to Fort Hood. All of a sudden, I get a phone call from the prosecutor, because this hadn't been more than 45 minutes since the trial. I was literally the last person. That was it. After that, they were going to have to go to deliberation or whatever they were doing. I got a call from the prosecutor, and he said, "Hey, they just came back." And I said, "And?" He goes, "Guilty." And I was like, wow. He said, "I wasn't sure how things were going to go." He said, "But you sealed the deal. You literally, when he asked you that question, you put a nail right in the coffin and closed it up for us." I was thrilled, of course, because, I didn't want someone to, walk away from what they had done. And I was like, wow, I really made that much of a difference, huh? And he said, "Yeah, you did." He said, "You know what?" He said, "If you're not out of San Antonio yet," he said, "we need to meet here, because I need to buy you a drink." And I said, "Cool, thanks."
But I'm sure that was just a coincidence that was Faith's 10th birthday.
Yeah, it was a total coincidence that it panned out on her 10th birthday. And, it didn't really dawn on either one of us until I was driving home, and I called my wife. She said, "You know what today is?" And I said, "Faith's birthday." And she said, "Yep." And I said, "It was my turn this year." And she said, "Yep." And so, once again, coincidence puts us in crazy places, but that went on for many, many years.
There's another coincidence that is probably my favorite, other than, of course, all of our faith stories. Terry and I have a very, very dear friend who was in the military with him We have not seen him since, I think, 2009. This would have been January of 2019. And we were sitting on our back deck. We had just been pricing a part that we needed for our car, and the part was right at $400. Terry and I were just like, ugh, we don't have an extra $400 for this part, but we can't drive the car. And unless we have this part, what are we going to do? Terry was like, you know what? I'm going to go check the mail. He was so just flustered because we had spent a lot of money fixing this car, thought we had everything fixed, and then here's this $400 part. About a week earlier, our very dear friend that we were talking about who lives in New York, I'm not going to say your name, but we love you, Big Daddy. Anyways, he lives in New York, and he had reached out to Terry and had asked for our address. So Terry goes outside and he gets the mail, just something to walk away from the situation because we were both very stressed out about it.
I was going to set the car on fire.
He comes back. I'm still out on the back deck, and he comes out. He just has this look of awe on his face, and he has a envelope in his hand, and he said, "It's for you." And I said, "What?" Said, "Is it bad news?" I mean, he just the look on his face, I didn't really understand it. I said, "Is it bad?" And he said, "No, it's for you." He hands it to me, and it's a card, and I open up the card, and as I open up the card, I see that there's a check inside, and the check's made out to me. It's for $400. Keep in mind, this person lives in New York. We literally, like 5 minutes previous, had just priced the part. So there's no way that he could have known. The card at the very beginning, and I will never forget these words, said, "I bet you don't know why I'm sending this to you. To be honest with you, I don't know why either, but God told me to send $400. Terry and I just sat there and were like, no coincidence.
Everything for a reason.
I called him and he didn't answer the time I left him a message and just told him the story of, you're not going to believe this, but he called me back and left me a message and said, thank you, because I heard 400 and I said, well, no, 300. And Father said, he said, again, I heard 400. And I said, well, maybe I should send 5. And he said, I again heard this just very stern voice say, no, 400. My very dear friend says to me in this message, I hear his voice crack, and he says, thank you. You have helped reaffirm my faith. I do hear him. And that's what all these coincidences are. They're just Father talking to us. He's just asking us to help another one of his children. They're not coincidences. We need to pay attention. We need to watch what's going on around us. Because these are ways that our Father is talking to us. We must listen. We have the free will not to. But why would you not want to hear him?
And sometimes the messages, like a coincidence, can be very profound, but it doesn't have to be profound. It can just be some fairly ordinary circumstance. And I find myself walking away from situations now, asking myself, what was that for? Why was I here? What was going on? And I ask him, Father, what was I supposed to learn from that? Because I just get the very strong feeling that there was a lesson there. And what was I supposed to learn from it? And usually there's a lesson of some sort. Sometimes it's a reminder. Sometimes it's a new lesson. Sometimes it's just having you step out of what you are comfortable doing. But every time there's a lesson involved. And so we just have to look at it and think that it wasn't a coincidence, but everything happens for a reason. What was the reason behind this?
We know the things we talk about are not common knowledge, but they are truth, God's truth, and you have the free will to accept the things we tell you or not, with no judgment. What is divine about us? Nothing and everything, the same as you. No human is more vital than another. You have the free will to choose with no judgment, because the authority to judge does not reside on the earth. But don't take my word for it. I am human and I am flawed just like everyone else. I'm just a pretty face and a voice. Ask God. He won't lie to you. If you have suggestions for topics that you would like for us to cover, or if you just have a question, please feel free to contact us on my website, www.authorgodsoracle.com. If you enjoy this podcast, please subscribe, leave us a review, then share this podcast with at least 3 people, and let's start speaking our own truth with no fear of judgment. If you would like to purchase my book, Becoming an Oracle, Proof God Has a Sense of Humor, you can find links to that on my website. Again, that is www.authorgodsoracle.com, and that's www.author, like a book author, godsoracle.com. Until next time, love eternal, God's Oracle.